through telling their history. If you go back and you read the rest of the chapter, he's kind of giving a discourse on their history. But somebody read 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12 and 13.
Therefore let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. No temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation you will also make the way of escape, that you may be able to bear it.
So what Paul is saying, listen, don't be caught off guard. Be prepared, be on guard, be standing ready, and at all times be ready to face the test. And in the midst of that test, don't give in to temptation to sin in the midst of the test. Don't give in to the temptation to turn the test into you going away from the Lord. You know, we talked about how the test is I guess, kind of rigged to draw you closer to the Lord. It's designed to draw you deeper in your relationship with the Lord and to help you grow your faith in Him and to see what He's trying to work on you in and to make you perfect in your faith and to round you out or to complete you in who He wants you to be. So don't miss that by going into the test and saying, oh, I need an easy way out. Or looking and giving up and just saying, you know what, I can't do this. You know, Paul says, listen, there's nothing that you're going to face that God can't bring you through. There's nothing that you're going to face that you can't endure. There's nothing you're going to face that you just can't make it through. And so he's telling them, you know, remain steadfast or endure the trial. And, you know, the other thought, how many of you watch the show Wipeout? You ever seen that show? We watch it because, I don't know why it's funny, but you just see people just getting knocked every which way. And I think one of my favorite parts of the whole show is, of course, when they're, you know, trying to qualify or whatever, but when they get to the wall that has the hands that just punch out, and apparently on the new one they have like a dog that jumps out, and then like something like a door that'll swing open and hit them, and it just slings them off into that nasty water. But 9 times out of 10, I don't think I've ever seen anybody quit even though they got knocked down. And I know that's a silly illustration, but those people, they keep going, even though you and I know, hey, listen, that hand's about to just really jack your jaw and knock you off. And, you know it has to hurt, and you know they get knocked into that nasty water, but yet they get up and they still continue. I know they're competing to win money, but they keep going. They remain steadfast in what they've started. They go to finish. I hope this microphone lasts, because I hope that I don't remember what's correct. But anyway. But you know, carry that picture with you. That was the picture I was trying to think of earlier, and then for some reason a guy standing on top of a boat facing a fierce wind out in the middle of the ocean talking about it. But either way, you see the idea. My mind works in different ways. But you get the concept of remaining steadfast. You get this idea of, you know, blessed is the man or happy is the man that perseveres under trial and continues in it. And we talked about some people, as we look through the Old Testament, that endured trials and temptations that they were faced with, and God used those things to draw them deeper in their walk with Him. We talked about Joseph. Brother Jim just preached, I can't remember if it was this past Sunday or the Sunday before, about Abraham and him, you know, stepping out on faith and going out in faith. And then you look at Daniel and you look at Job. You think about the disciples. Somebody flip over to Acts chapter 5. Acts chapter 5. Verses 40 through 42. And in thinking about Acts and the New Testament, you know, somebody else that also persevered and endured things was Paul. You know, there are many times where Paul was kicked out of a city and, you know, or beaten or left for dead or had a shipwreck or was bitten by, you know, a poisonous snake. You know, lots of things that he endured, but he continued to go and he continued to share the gospel. Somebody have Acts chapter 5? All right, Michael, hit it. 40 through 42.
And to him they agreed, and when they had called the apostles and beaten them, they commanded that they should not speak in the name of Jesus and let them go. And they departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer shame for his sin. And daily in the temple and in every house they ceased not to teach and preach Jesus Christ.
Now here you have an example of early believers who've gone before, you know, the authorities, and they're telling them, listen, they're trying to figure out how to essentially kill the gospel. They think that they've killed it with Christ being crucified, but now all of a sudden the church is growing, the church has exploded, and they have these believers who are remaining steadfast in the face of persecution, they have these guys come before them, they stand before them, they tell them, listen, whatever you do, you cannot go out and you cannot continue to share the gospel. You can't do this. And so they beat them and then they release them. And what do you see these guys do? They go out rejoicing. I can't even begin to put that into perspective in my own life and just think through, okay, if I've stood before some authorities, some government authorities, who told me not to share the gospel, and then to go out rejoicing, even because of that. I hope that's what I would do, but you think about they had to know the Lord. They had to be really, really close in their walk with the Lord to go out rejoicing after being beaten. They had something to be excited about. They had something to go and tell people about. And you see, they continued to go. Wherever they went and shared the gospel. And I don't know, I can give you illustration after illustration, but that's probably one of the best pictures that you can find of remaining steadfast and doing what God's called you to do. Even in the face of a test, even in the face of persecution, remaining, you faithful and continuing to be steadfast in doing and persevering and enduring the tests that God's put in your path. And a lot of people, the common perception today is, well, if you look at yourself, see what you have available to you, and you make use of what is available in your life and make the best out of the situation that you're faced with, turn lemons into lemonade and just suck it up and go on, then but that's not the concept that what God is saying here. Yeah, you can do those things. You can just make the best out of every situation. You can suck it up, not complain, and just grin it and bear it. But if you do that, you're missing out on what God's true purpose is for that test in your life. You're missing out on that opportunity to grow deeper in your walk with it. Because if you just grin it and bear it, all you're doing is putting a smile on your face to give people the perception that you're okay, that you're happy, that everything's fine in your life. But on the inside, you're bitter, you're angry, you're frustrated, you're questioning, why me? Why am I having to deal with this? And you're missing the joy that the Lord has for you. You're missing the blessing that He has in teaching you and making you perfect in your faith, making you complete in your faith to walk with Him. So don't just, don't take the world's advice and just grin it and bear it. I know, there's a lot of sayings that go along with that. Don't just try to, suck it up and make it all right. Trust that God will allow you to persevere and to endure through that test, through that trial. Is this getting on y'all's nerves? Is it? Okay, it's kind of getting on mine. But, because I just hear a But the next thing you see in verse 12 is after he says, blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, he begins to say, for once he's been approved. And this whole idea, this concept of approved is what I call passing the test. He says, for once he's been approved, or when he has stood the test. And it's not just like, hey, when my wife grades papers, the kids get her approval and they pass a test, or the same for you in class, it shows your knowledge of a subject and then you just progress on. But it's not just gaining approval from an authority figure or your peers or anything like that, but what James is referring to here is gaining the approval of God. It's key to remember who's taking you through this test, who's using this test to shape you. Where this test came from and what's the purpose of this test. And when we begin to put that in perspective, then it gives you a better understanding of, yes, I'm looking to gain the approval of God. I'm looking for God to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. I'm looking for God to show me, listen, here's how you get through this, and I'm almost like I'm proud of you for passing this test. Because you've allowed me to work in your life. You've allowed me to shape you into who I want you to be. Not trying to continue to be, who you want to be and do your own thing. But allowing God to shape you. And the word that's used here is the Greek word for a doctor that's passing a test, but it's not just like